Assalamu alaikum, my lovely sisters. How are you guys doing? I have not connected my speaker. I hope you guys have had a good week, good weekend. Inshallah khair. Walaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. I'm doing wonderful, alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great this morning. Good to see you too, Rabia. Good to see you too. I'm glad you could make it today. Say salam to your mom, inshallah. Yeah. All right. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa hlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase us in beneficial knowledge. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teach us that which will benefit us. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to that which we need to be. Guide us to what we need to know. I was just, going to repeat what I was saying, just so that it's also recorded, is that we're going to do Surat At-Takathur today instead of Takathur and Asr, because they're both big and they're both, they were supposed to be today, but just for the sake of quality, we'll just do Takathur today. And also because there's been, the reminder about death has been real for me this week. And I just wanted this surah to be a reminder for me. So we're just going to flip the order and do Takathur. And then Asr, inshallah, next week, if I make it, bi'idhnillah. I'm still optimistic, I guess. So we'll see, inshallah, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings our way. So if, what was I going to say? So this week, subhanallah, a couple of things happened. You know how it was like the week of Ashura, it was like a week full of khair. It's a blessed month. Like the month of Muharram is one of the sacred months in our deen. And with everything that is coming up for me, I just felt really disconnected from me, I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I just felt like I was so uptight and anxious that I felt disconnected, and when you get into a situation like that, you need a reminder, you need something that kind of gets you out of the routine, right? So I made plans to go to a janaza both Thursday and Friday. Qadar Allah, neither one worked out. The Friday one, there was a janazah for a 3-year-old. So I get the reminders on my phone. Like whenever there is a janazah, I get that, right? So if you plan ahead, if you know your schedule, if you could, maneuver some things, it's easy for you to go. If your schedule doesn't allow, then sometimes it just becomes hard, right? But we all know how much we benefit from going to a janazah. And so on Friday, I made plans with my mom that she wanted to go see the grave of her brother, rahimahullah. He passed away 2 years ago, and it was like a sudden death. He was visiting from Kenya, and he passed away. So my mom and my aunt had been wanting to go, and then I said, we'll go do it on Friday. So we made the plan to do this on Friday, and then there was a janazah for a 3-year-old boy that just suddenly got hit by a car. And I remember feeling like, subhanAllah, we love our kids, we raise them, and we hope that they would grow, but you never know, when is their day, who will live and who will make it. And, it's just, it was a shock for me. And all I kept on thinking was how are his parents feeling right now, so Qadar Allah, when we went to the janazah, it was delayed and I couldn't really partake of it because it was delayed. It was at 3:00 instead of 1:30. But we went to the qabr, we went to the graveyard. And it was the first time I ever go visit a graveyard just to visit, it was the first time I went to a graveyard just to visit somebody. I'd never done that before. I've been to the graveyard right after burying somebody, but never with the intention of just to go visit. So it was just walking through the lines, wallahi, and just looking at the ages of the people dying, looking at the time they died, looking at what others are like saying about them. Like, sometimes they say, this person was this for us, or it was reality. It was like, this could be you, like this could be someone you love, this could be anybody, but we never really anticipate it, right? Death, like, or the thought of death takes a certain level of certainty, and sometimes as human beings, and this is what this surah will talk about, that certainty as human beings, we're not always so connected to it. We forget it. We know it, but we forget it. We're human, right? Allah created us like that. We're weak. We forget. And alhamdulillah for that, because if we were always conscious of it, like, our life would not be the same. But at the same time, like, there is lessons in Surat At-Takathur where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to have a healthy level of yaqeen about death, that it shapes the way we live every single day. The day after, there was another janazah, like, and every single day there's janazah. Like, on Thursday there was 3 janazahs in one day, and I was thinking, like, if I get to go to this, maybe I'll get the reward of all 3, but I couldn't go. And so it's like, I've been making dua, like, ya Allah, like, allow me to go and pray a janazah. You never think you're going to pray the janazah of someone and someone, like, so the principal at my son's school passed away. He's been sick for a while, rahimahullah. Yesterday, when I got, like, a text, like, saying that he passed away, I remember thinking, like, this cannot be real. But this life is nothing but a surprise to us. Like, we don't know when our qadr will come, when our time will come. But it really was a shock, because you really expect people to get better after they are sick. You don't expect death to come to them so suddenly, especially when you, like, with someone like him. All I know is, like, I'm new to the community. Everybody knows him from a long time ago and how much he's been doing, but I'm new to the community, and all I know is Pioneers Academy. And wallahi, like, I always look at that school, and I look at what they do, and I look at the way he interacts with kids, and I'm like, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give him Jannah, because he truly was a man who had a vision for what he was doing in the school, and he lived it, and the kids experienced it, and the teachers talked about it. And it just breaks your heart that you lose someone like that, because then you're like, they were doing something so amazing. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replace them with someone who is capable of doing that, and even better, hopefully. Anyways, this is why I'm starting with Surat At-Takathur. It's just a reminder. It's a reminder that we all need at a time when we become heedless, at a time when we feel like we need a reminder about the akhirah, where we feel like we're stuck, we feel like we're maybe, like, got into a place of a routine, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revive our hearts with what is most important. And there is nothing more important to remember than the fact that we can die tomorrow. We can die right now. I could be, like, planning for an amazing life, planning for an amazing month, planning for an amazing vacation or marriage or parenting and all this stuff, and legacy and all this stuff that we dream of and build and work hard for. But the angel of death can just come and take our life at that moment, right? So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, really allow us to get the best from this surah, bi'idhnillah. So you have your notes uploaded. I'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and start listening to the surah. No, it's not this one. And you could follow along with the English translation, inshallah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ألهاكم التكاثر حتى زرتم المقابر كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم ثم لترونها عين اليقين ثم لتسألن يومئذ عن النعيم.
I'm going to share my screen with you guys. Okay. So Surat At-Takathur is one of those early, like Makki surahs as well. The purpose of revelation, or what I found, is that, subhanAllah, there is, it goes back to the culture of the Arabs. It goes back to the culture of the people that were living at the time. It goes back to like what we also as a society value. And this is what the whole surah is addressing, is that when we are basically, we think what we think, we value things that are not really valuable, you know. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, like, you are at takathur. The word takathur means to increase, to perpetually increase, to seek growth, to seek or pursue something that is abundant, you know. Comes with from the root word kathura. But takathur is like, you know, that it multiplies, that things multiply, that things become more and more and more. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happened is that there was a tribe from two tribes in Mecca, Banu Sahm, I think. There's two tribes. Basically, there's a tribe from Banu Abdul Manaf or Bani Sahm. Okay, so I have my teacher notes right here. They were talking and asking one another, which one of us has more people in our tribe? And having more people in your tribe meant that you were better, that you were more successful, that you had something greater in value, right? Being more in numbers meant that you were greater in value. I know, like, Somalis, we are a very tribalistic community as well, in terms of like the way our community is set up, like where we have tribes. And I remember when I was younger, my aunt, she was teaching me about our tribe, and she said to me, we are the most when it comes to the Somali tribes, like we are the biggest. And I remember thinking, oh wow, that's interesting. Like, I really believed her. I thought, like, okay, we were the most. But then come to find out, like, every tribe thinks they are the most, you know? And then you realize this is not something that people say because they've counted. They say it because it's like pride, you know, like we pride ourselves in that, you know? And, you know, when you go to weddings and you listen to that, you know, brambor, like when women are, like, it's a dance and the woman is praising, what is she praising? They're praising the ancestors and the tribes that people coming from, and things are said, and sometimes these things are not even real, but then it's just, this is how we feel about ourselves, you know? And then the other thing is, like, when Banu Abdul Manaf and Banu Sahm did this, they actually told them, like, they said, let's go and check. So they went to the grave site and they were counting how many people they had that died. And the narration said, فكثرهم بنو سهم. Banu Sahm were actually more in number, so they were like, oh, we are better than you, we are more than you. And so there was another tribe from the Jews that was also doing the same thing, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then revealed the surah, and this surah is actually also general. Some of the objectives or the lessons or the things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is wanting us to, is addressing in this surah, is what are your priorities, when it comes to, like, your priority versus the reality of life. What are you trying to grow in terms of this dunya, and what does it look like in terms of the akhirah? What will it look like, and how conscious are you of death that will come and take you to that next place that is more eternal? I think last week when we were talking about رَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ, was it? No, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. Neither one. I think I'm confusing it with another surah. In Surat Al-Mulk, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِي خَلَقَ الْمَوْتَ وَالْحَيَاةَ لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. Allah started with, Allah says, like, He's created death and life. So in the tafsir, one of the lessons, one of the reasons why Allah starts with death is because death is the beginning of an eternal life. Right? Whereas life in this dunya is temporary and it's short compared to the akhirah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bringing our minds to something that is like more eternal, which is death, and something that, like, actually the whole Quran is always pointing us to. You know, like, a central message in the Quran is always thinking about death and what it will come and you will meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We will talk about the stages, like what happens. Like now I'm alive in this dunya. How will my soul be taken? When will the angel of death come to me? How will he come to me? What will happen to my soul and my body? What will people do around me? What will people do to my body? And then when I get into the grave, what happens? Because as Muslims, we believe that there is like 3 stages, and we will talk about them: dunya, barzakh, and akhirah. And then the certainty of the hellfire and the punishment of the hellfire, the punishment of the grave, the blessings that we will see in the grave, and then also like counting your blessings, because another central message in the Quran is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always wanting us to increase ourselves in our level of gratitude, in the mindset of gratitude, and how do we live in gratitude. So that's another thing that this surah will be addressing. Why are my slides empty? Is anybody else's slides empty? What is going on here? Okay, we just got done with that. Okay, yeah, mine looks like it's good too, but maybe I'll just close it and reopen it. This is weird. Okay. Thank you, Palestine. That was weird. All right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if we break down the verses in the surah, and what's interesting, I always share, what about this surah stands out to you or resonates with you. This is a surah we learn from the time we're young. And the word al-hakum, it means to distract you. It comes if you ever see somebody named Alha is like lahu, something distracts you, something keeps you busy. It's a very basic, simple Arabic word. It's not one of those, it's not like one of those classical Arabic words that you need a dictionary to understand. But I never understood it until I heard a sheikh explain it. We learned it, we said it, we memorized it, I've always read it. But then I was in my mid-20s when I understood al-hakum, you just got distracted. So the simple idea of just understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, you're being distracted. You're being, your mind is not where it's supposed to be. Asking ourselves, where is our minds? Where is our priorities? What is it that we are busy with? What is it that keeps us going? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, and He's making a statement, Al-hakum At-Takathur, indeed, the seeking abundance or pursuit of abundance has distracted you. From what? From the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hatta zurtum al-maqabir, until when you visit the graves. And until when you visit the graves, kalla sawfa ta'lamun, indeed you will know, you will find out. Thumma kalla sawfa ta'lamun, again certainly you will know. Kalla law ta'lamuna ilm al-yaqeen, if you only knew with knowledge of certainty, la tarawunna al-jahim, you would definitely for sure see the hellfire. ثُمَّ لَتَرَوُنَّهَا عَيْنَ الْيَقِينِ, then again you will definitely see it with the eyes of certainty. ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ, and then on that day you will definitely for sure be asked about the blessings that you were in. So what are we pursuing and what is our motivation? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us to compete with one another and to increase our growth. in a way that distracts us and diverts us from the worship of Allah. So for example, it's time for salah and I'm going to choose my business over my salah, or my work over my salah, or the exam over my salah, or me pursuing whatever it is, like, taking care of family affairs, or cooking for my guests, or cooking for my family, or taking care of my children. I mean, I know we love our children and we do whatever it takes to take care of them, but at the same time, there's the haqq of Allah and there's the haqq of the people, or the haqq of anything else that you're dedicated to. So when you give the haqq of Allah, the right of Allah, to anybody other than Allah, it becomes a problem. It becomes like something that is distracting you from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it no longer becomes a way for you to worship Allah. Okay, so realizing that you're being distracted and it's taking you away from doing things that Allah wants you to do. And what are these things that keep us busy usually? It's our family, our spouses, and our children. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا إِنَّ مِنْ أَزْوَاجِكُمْ وَأَوْلَادِكُمْ عَدُوًّا لَكُمْ. That all you who believe, there are some in your family and your spouses and your children that are enemies to you. Enemies to you in what sense? Not that they're fighting you. Enemies to you in the sense that they could be also fighting you and basically making life difficult for you. But in this context, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying you give them so much that you neglect your own self. And you know how when we talk about you can't give until you have taken care of yourself, this is an area that needs that as well. This is actually the most important area that we need to do that. And if we forget it in other areas, it's okay, but it's never okay to forget the haqq of Allah when it comes to taking care of our spouses and taking care of our children. In the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةٌ. That indeed your children and your wealth is only a test for you. You're so busy with it, you're so busy with them, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants to see. He's testing you. He is checking to see what choice will you make. Because when a fitna happens, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you two options, or He's putting you through a trial to see which choice are you going to make. Are you going to make the choice that brings you closer to Allah? And when you do that, and your intention is with Allah, guess what Allah does? Allah takes care of you and your family and your children. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings about an exit. So Allah says in the Quran, in Surat At-Talaq, that وَمَنْ يَتَّقِ اللَّهِ, He actually repeats this, the whole surah is a repetition of this concept. If you have consciousness of Allah, Allah will provide for you from a place you never thought and you never expected. Let me share with you, since last time we talked about salah. And we talked about how distracted we become when we are in a state of prayer. What usually happens to women, and this is a complaint many women have, including myself, so this is something we will definitely struggle with, right? Is the inability to focus and have khushu' when we have little ones, right? And this is part of life, part of nature, it happens. But I think I told you guys about the story where a woman, there's in the motherhood Facebook group where women were asking what do you do about your salah? My salah is struggling. And amazing women were struggling with their salawat. Women who are very committed to their deen, they were very sincere about the pain it was causing them. This one sister said that she had a lot of children, and she learned from an early stage that her salah is her number one thing. And what she started to do is that whenever she's praying, she will tell her kids, I'm praying, it's my time, assalamu alaikum. And she will just make sure they are safe, that the fire is not on, that they don't have scary toys, that the house is obviously child-proof for them, that they know how to behave and how to interact with one another when it's time for her to be in salah. And she would just start her salah. And she said, eventually my kids know if mommy is in Allahu Akbar state, nobody will come talk to her. And I remember at this time, it was a time in my life when my son was very little, maybe he was a year and a half, 2 years old. And it was so difficult for me to even make breakfast, to what are we going to eat? He just wanted to be attached to me. He just wanted me to pick him up. He wanted me to hold him. And I was just the kind of a mom that, he says, and I'm right there for you, So I remember just doing that, like just saying, like, you know what, I'm going to be in salah. I'm not going to pick him up. I'm not going to hold him. Like my whole salah used to be like, pick him up, hold him, pick him up and sit down with it. Do ruku', put him down. And there was just too many movements that were just not making it easy for me to pray, or like it was, sometimes it also like comes against the rules of salah, you know, and I don't know if there is specific rules for women when it comes to like having a child or whatever. But anyways, the goal was, they said the lesson was for me is that once we do that with our children and we show the limits, we show our boundaries, others also respect our boundaries. When it's like, hey, you know what, this is the time that I have for you and I'm not going to give you more than this. This is what I'm able to do for you and I'm not going to give you more than this. Then they will respect that boundary as well. Even if they are a child that is 2 years old, or a husband who's 40 years old, who's expecting you or expecting from us things that is not aligned with what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, you know? So recognizing that, or a job that is not letting you take time off to pray, or a job that is not giving you a Friday off, or, you know what I mean? Like something that is really important to you. When do we come to the realization that what I'm seeking with Allah is more important than what this dunya thing is giving me? Right? So being conscious of that, and whatever, all the things that we chase, whether it is family, wealth, fame, positions, being recognized, all this stuff falls under that. So another thing is that realizing, like, you know, we talked a lot about what true worship means, and all of these things can become a way for us to actually pursue, like, to get the best in the akhirah, if our intention is correct and the way we do it is like following the Quran and the Sunnah, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed somebody with a marriage that they're happy with, that they're grateful for. So they do the things in their marriage that brings them the pleasure of Allah. They do things to take care of their children that brings them the pleasure of Allah. Like they raise their children according to the Quran and the Sunnah. They raise them to love Allah. So if this is your intention behind this relationship, or you pursue a job so that you could take care of your family, so that you could give in sadaqah, so that you could live a dignified life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward you. And these things will no longer become a distraction. They are actually your means, your way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what changes it, what makes the difference is your intention, and how much are you trying to follow the Quran and the Sunnah in it. So learning about the best ways to be a spouse, learning about the best way to parent your children from an Islamic perspective, learning how to run, like how to manage your income, and what is the best way for you to exert your energy and your efforts in this dunya, and how is it, like how do you want it to be on the day of judgment, you know? So you could be a medical doctor here, only working for this dunya, and buying the fanciest cars only for this dunya. Or you could be a medical doctor who, yes, you're working and you're getting those fancy cars anyways because you're able to, alhamdulillah, but with it comes alhamdulillah. You know, I was reading a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he saw a man who looked disheveled and you know, like not very neat and not very, like, I guess not very appealing into his eyes. So he asked him, do you have any wealth? And the man said, yes, Ya Rasulullah, I have a lot of it. And he said, what do you have? And he said, I have cows, I have camel, I have this, I have that. Like, he was like a man who had an abundant, you know, like amount of wealth. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, Allah loves it. Take care of, like, basically let Allah's blessings be seen on you. Allah loves it when his servant shows that he has been blessed by Allah, you know? So we often think, like, you know, like living with a certain standard, with a certain standards, we think of it like it's something negative. We don't want to pursue that, which is fine. You know, people are different. People have different, things that they care about, you know. I don't really care for a car. Like Toyota Camry will always be good enough, you know, if it fits. But somebody else might like a different type of a car that is more expensive because it just resonates with them. And what's the difference then is that they feel grateful. that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to them, they say, Allahumma lakal hamd, and think about always like, Sulaiman alayhi salam, when he asked Allah, he asked to be the best, like he asked Allah for a power or for a kingdom that nobody will ever have after him. So it is okay for somebody to want dunya as well, but at the same time, why? Every time Sulaiman alayhi salam, like Allah speaks about him, Allah mentions how grateful he was for what Allah has given him. Even though what Allah gave him is only like matters of his dunya, he's somebody who's always, Allah is always showing how he was grateful in his tongue, like in the way he just made gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Rabbi awzi'ni an ashkura ni'mataka allati an'amta alayya wa ala waliday. Oh Allah, make me someone who is capable, who's able to fulfill being grateful to you and the blessings you have given me and my parents. Those are the words of Ibrahim alayhi salam. So I hope that makes sense. What I'm stressing in this slide is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying you are distracted, but that distraction is when it takes you away from the worship of Allah. And that you could be busy with these things, but then also get the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then it does not become blameworthy. There is always, always, always the strive for balance and a strive for being able to fulfill the haqq of Allah and the haqq of the akhirah. And will we ever do that? No, but we have the intention to do it. We have the intention to do it, and we're constantly asking Allah to forgive our shortcomings, So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, حَتَّى زُرْتُمُ الْمَقَابِرِ, until something happens. And what happens? You visit the graves. Now visiting, obviously we think about it as something, I'm going to go visit my friend and I'm going to come back. Like this is my place, I'm going to go there, I'm going to be there temporarily and I'm going to come back. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala chose that word for a purpose, because it shows visiting the grave is something that happens, like you die, you're going to be in the grave for a short period of time, then you will come out of it and you will be in a permanent place. Okay, so when we go to the graves, and this is a metaphor for like when we die and actually go and live in our grave, we will be living there for a very long time. Allah Ta'ala a'lam, until the day of judgment. Some people have been in there for thousands of years. Some people will be in there, Allah Ta'ala a'lam, like how long, So it depends on how close you are to the day of judgment. It's still a long time, but you're still in a state of visiting, and that you're not settling in the grave, that this will not be your last home. So the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to teach his companions that they go and visit the graves. And he would say, visit the graves. Like he used to say in the beginning, he used to say like, I used to forbid you from not visiting the graves, but now you should go and visit because it contains so much reminder for your heart. It reminds you of the akhirah. It reminds you of your priorities. It reminds you of the of the fact that you're going to die, that you need to realign yourself again with what is most important to you. Because as human beings, we forget, and this is natural. The Prophet ﷺ used to teach them the dua that they would say when they go to the grave. And look at this dua, because it's a dua that really makes you like the dua itself is the reminder. I felt like, when we were there at the grave, it was just like this is, I think, what kind of got me to think, like, I always say this whenever I'm teaching, is that when I learn about death, or I learn about what happens when somebody dies, or how to wash a dead body. I remember the first time I learned about washing a dead body, all I could think of is my mom. Like, one day I'm going to be washing my mom like that. I never think my mom could be the one washing me, and it's just the way, it's just the way my thoughts go. And if I think about losing somebody, I worry about losing my child or losing my husband, and I'm like, Ya Allah, protect us, Ya Allah, take care of them, Ya Allah, give them a long life. And then I'm like, what about your own death? And so this is when it reminded me, in this whole weekend, I was just thinking like, oh my God, what if it is me who dies? What will happen to my family? What will happen to my loved ones? And we know Allah will take care of them, right? We know Allah will take care of them. But the goal is to think am I ready for that? Am I ready for that death? Am I ready for being in this grave? What will come after me in this grave? What will I say to Allah when I meet with Allah? How have I lived my life to show that I am actually prepared for this meeting and for this grave? So the Prophet ﷺ says, when you go to the grave, say, Assalamu alaikum, ahl al-diyar min al-mu'mineen wal-muslimin. I think I translated that wrong. So basically, all like, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you, the people of the graves, from the believing, from min al-mu'mineen wal-muslimin. So of the believers and of those who submitted. I guess I put believing men and women. So maybe you could just correct that. وَإِنَّا إِنْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ بِكُمْ لَلَاحِقُونَ. And we will definitely, inshallah, be coming after you. أسأل الله لنا ولكم العافية. I ask Allah for you and for us well-being. Well-being in dunya, well-being in the grave, well-being in the akhirah. Okay? And then thinking about what really benefits when you go to someone's grave, what will benefit them. I think we will talk about that, but let's talk about how we already, I think, talked about it. Like, how will this benefit you? It reminds you of your own death. What happens to the soul of a person, like when we're dying, like before you get to the grave? You have to die. You're actually still alive. Your ruh is in your body. And so I put a link here for this wonderful book called The Grave, Punishment and Blessings by Hussein al-Awaisha. It's like 96 pages long. It's PDF. It's free. It's online. You could read it. It's a great reminder. It's a really good book. I absolutely love it. And it's I've done so many halaqas around it. It really is like something that we should all read often and internalize and think about. This is like, where do I want to be? What do I want to experience? You know? And also, a lot of what I'm going to be sharing is from that book, and also from what we studied in Aqidah class with Sheikh Walid Basuni called Rays of Faith. There is a section about, like, obviously Akhirah. And Akhirah, when does Akhirah start? Akhirah starts, I know it starts on the Day of Judgment, but then our own Akhirah starts when we die. You know, when the angel of death comes to us. So when a person is in the last stages of their life, what happens is that the angel of death comes to them, and the angel of death does not he doesn't have he's told, go and take the life of so and so. You know, he doesn't even know how or where this person will be when he's going to take their life away. So think about the hadith when Idris alayhi salam said, and Allah Ta'ala alam about the authenticity of it, but was it Idris? It was Idris alayhi salam whose soul was being taken away in the fourth heaven. That's when the angel of death was going to come to him in the middle of a journey, or there was a reason why he went up there. But basically, the angel of death was surprised. He was like, I was told to take your life in this place, and I didn't know how that was going to happen. And as he was on a journey to go up there, or I don't know how, I shouldn't even mention this because I didn't review the details of it, but it just came to my mind. But basically, the angel of death himself was showing, was surprised, how would you be here when I saw you over there? Or when how could I take your life here when I knew you were in this different place? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is teaching us and teaching the angel of death is that, the qadr of Allah, you don't know where you will be. You don't know. We always say, we never thought this would happen at this time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam, and He's the only one that knows when is your time of death. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, one of the things that we would never know is, it's ilm al-ghayb, the ghayb that only Allah is aware of. وَلَا تَعْلَمُ نَفْسٌ بِأَيِّ أَرْضٍ تَمُوتُ, that no soul or no nafs will ever know in which land it will die. In which land it will die. Nobody will ever know in which land they will die. So the angel of death comes to this person. If they were a believer, the angels of rahmah come with them. If that person is a sinner or not a believer or a hypocrite, then the angels of punishment come with the angel of death. And so when a person is dying, they see the angel of death, and they see the angels of punishment and the angels of rahmah, but nobody around them can see them, right? So their reaction will be will testify, or will show what is it that they are seeing. They could be conscious for it, or they may not be conscious for it. When the angel of death comes, he sits at the top of the head where of the person whose life is about to be taken, and the angels will say to the disbelievers, "Akhriju anfusakum," take out your soul, take it out. And the soul is taken out in a way where it's when you have the hadith describes it as you have a wool that is wet and you're trying to take it apart, it's so hard, whereas the soul of the believer comes out softly, gently, and the person is screaming and worried, where are you going to, what are you going to do to me, where are you going to take me? They don't want to live, they don't want to die, they don't want to face these angels, but you have no choice. The angel of death starts taking the life of a person from their feet, and it goes up slowly or fast, I guess, however death came to them. But then he sits at the top of their head, so the soul goes out this way. And this is why we see a lot of times when a person just died, their eyes are looking up, because they're watching their soul being taken out. And in the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the angels of Rahmah in Surat Fussilat, he talks about the conversation they will have with the believers, because this is a time of anxiety and fear, right? I'm going to go to something I don't know. We have anxiety and fear over simple things in this dunya, but imagine you're leaving your family, you're dying, you're going to meet with Allah. So this is the time where it's actually most intense. So guess what the angels say? They say to the believers, وَلَا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا. No, نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا. We are the ones that were there for you, your supporters, your friends. We reminded you of good في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة. And in the akhirah, we will not leave you alone as well. We will continue to be with you. We will continue to support you. I'm going to open the Mus'haf. نحن أولياؤكم في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة ولكم فيها ما تشتهي أنفسكم, and you in it you will get whatever you want. نزلا من غفور رحيم. Basically this is the reward that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you. But basically the lesson in it is that they are being comforted and reminded of the fact that these angels فقضاهن سبع سماوات. Okay, so Allah says, indeed, those who say Allah is our Rabb, and then they were steadfast, on the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, تَتَنَزَّلُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, the angels come down to them, أَلَّا تَخَافُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا, have no fear, have no worries, have no sadness, and have the glad tidings and happy news of a Jannah that you had been promised. We were your supporters and your friends in this dunya. And نُزُلًا مِنْ غَفُورٍ رَحِيمٍ, right? So those are basically the verses. It's verse 30, 31, 32 in Surat Fussilat. Okay? Whereas the kafir will say, رَبِّ ارْجِعُونَ, oh Allah, take me back. Oh Allah, let me go back. Let me just try to do something good. Let me try to pay one time sadaqah. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَلَّا, no, it is a word that has been given. وَمِن وَرَائِهِمْ بَرْزَخٌ إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, and they are now going to be facing the barzakh, which is this life of the grave, and that time إِلَى يَوْمِ يُبْعَثُونَ, until the day where Allah will resurrect them. So Allah, the kafir or the disbeliever, or the one who did not live according to this, with the consciousness of Allah and meeting with Allah, they are in a state of fear, and they're begging and they're scared. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, there's no going back. There is no going back. This is your time. You're done. Time's up. Game over. There is nothing else that can be done for that person. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from an evil end. What will you be doing when the time of death comes to you? This is when we make dua. We don't know what in what state we will be when the angel of death comes to us. So a dua we often should make is Allahumma inni as'aluka husnul khatima. Oh Allah, I ask you for a good ending. وَأَعُوذُ بِكَ مِنْ سُوءِ الْخَاتِمَةِ, and I seek protection in you from having an evil ending, like an ending that I'm not proud of. Because everybody is resurrected on the day of judgment doing whatever it is that they were doing, whatever they were doing when the angel of death came to them. The soul then is taken up. Okay, so the soul of the believer, the angels take it up and they go up with it. They ascend to the heavens, right? And they're taking it to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it continues, and then if it was a believer, whenever it gets to one of the heavens, like how they say 7 heavens, whenever it gets to the gates of the heavens, it smells good. And the people say, who is this good smelling soul that is coming up? And so the angels respond and they say, this is so-and-so, the son of so-and-so, the daughter of so-and-so. And they mention the best qualities that person was known for. If the person was not a believer, or they were evil, that soul does not smell good, and the angels say, who is this disgusting or bad smelling soul? And then they mention the worst things that this person did that deserved them the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then the soul of the believer continues up until it goes almost to meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in every heaven that before the gates open, that same conversation happens. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, اكتبوا كتاب عبدي في العليين, write the book of my servant in the highest places. And we will talk about that when we get to Surat Al-Mutaffifin. Basically Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts it, Allah is pleased with it. This is like when it's being said, Ya ayyatuha nafsul mutma'inna, you go back to your Rabb and you are basically pleased and content, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is once Allah is pleased with it, it's taken, right? And it's held in love and respect and honor, and then until it's put back to its body in the grave. Okay? Whereas the soul of the disbeliever, what happens to it is that it goes up, and the heavens, the angels refuse to open the heavens for them. They do not ascend. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, اكتبوا كتابه اكتبوا كتابه في سجين إن كتاب الأبرار لفي عليين كتاب الأبرار لفي سجين. So put this person's soul basically in Sijin. Okay, Sijin is the lowest of the low. It's a place under the ground. So their soul is thrown down to their grave. It's not respected. It's not treated with goodness. It's basically it's being punished in the sense that it's rejected. Okay, when it comes back now, at this time when all this is happening, this is when us human beings, the people who are in this dunya still, they are taking care of the body. They are washing the body. They are preparing the body for janazah. They are taking the body for the burial site. And so as Muslims, we believe that we are supposed to hurry up with this process and not delay it more than we need to delay it, and not delay it more than we need to delay it. Sorry, there are people working in our house and I don't have curtains, so I see everything. Anyhow, so not delay it beyond we're supposed to delay it. So the soul of the believer at this point is saying, قدموها قدموها, oh, hurry up with it. Take my soul to my grave so that I can see what is waiting for me. Where the disbeliever will say, Ya waylaha ayna tadhabuna biha, oh, woe to me, where are you taking me? Do not take me, do not, but all this is happening and we cannot hear it, but it's the dead, that whether they're believers or disbelievers, they can actually hear all of this. They can actually hear all that is happening. What's interesting is subhanallah, there was maybe I'll share this story with you, when we were saying you don't know in which land you will die, or where you will die, or who will be taking care of you when you're dying. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always facilitates people to take care of the dead. You know, if they were good, Allah will facilitate people to take care of the dead. So I remember the story that Sheikh Waleed told us, and then something else that happened that was so similar to it. It just freaked me out that the stories were so similar. Basically, he told us about a woman. There was a masjid in North America where they were trying to get their license for their burial site. And it took them like years, over 5 years, where they were going back and forth with the city. Finally, they were able to get it. And once they got it, on the first day that they got it, 3 people came in, like 2 ladies and a man. They were not Muslim, and they asked that their mother is buried there. So the imam is like, okay, well, I understand, but this is only a Muslim burial site. And they were like, yeah, our mom was Muslim. She, you know, like her and our dad separated when they came to America. When we were younger, they like immigrated from China. They came to America. My father left Islam. And so my mother left all of us and went back to China. And she said, I'm not going to lose my religion. So she went back to China. When her kids were adults and they were grown, they said, we want you to come and visit us. And when she came to visit them, the first thing she did, she went to the yellow pages, and then she said to them, I'm a Muslim. And these, like, she tore out the page that had the Muslim masjid. She said, if anything happens to me, these are my brothers. You call them, you let them take care of me. She was somebody who was so concerned about if she died, what will happen to her, you know, since her children were also no longer Muslim. They weren't raised as Muslim. Obviously, their father raised them, right? So the next 2-3 days, she got sick, died right away. That's when they went to the masjid and they said, we will definitely take care of her. The community came, they buried her, they washed her. And he told us how the one of the ladies, I think he said one of them accepted Islam eventually, but she had a paper where she said, our mother used to always pray from this, like, is this something we could say? And it basically says, Allahumma ihfad awladi, oh Allah, protect my children. This woman who just died used to always make that dua for her children. And so the sheikh said that one of her children accepted Islam like right then and there because of like the awe they were in, like these people who don't even know our mother are taking care of everything for her. Like they're completing the janazah process for her, and they don't even know her. And they're here they are. The whole community is representing her, and they've never met her before. So another time I remember in Columbus, when I lived in Columbus, I had learned how to wash a body, but it was like the first time I actually was called to come and volunteer. And I'd never done it before, right? So there was a call that there was a woman that passed away, and that she had no family and nobody to take it to do her like burial and wash her and get her prepared. So when I went there, I remember I went with me, my mom, and like when we showed up, there was like 10 other women there, like not just, they were like the best of the women in the community. And obviously I had nothing to do with any of the washing. I just stood back and watched because there were women that were like, knew how to do it much better than I do. And subhanAllah, like this woman was washed, was cleaned, was prepared. And then her son, his wife and his family, they came and they said, can we pray for her? And then they started praying for her. And then, they were like, all of a sudden we hear like, something about Jesus, and I was like, oh, like, how come? I went after them, like, how come your mother is Muslim and you're not Muslim? Like, what happened? And he said to me, oh, back when they were from Africa, I think, I don't know which country in Africa they were from, but he said, back in the days, our families used to send us to school, and the schools were with missionaries, so we became Christian, but our parents, like, they're still Muslim, So I remember like freaking out at the idea, like, subhanAllah, how do you have like, and he also said the same thing, like his mom had just come to America, he had just applied for the green card for her, and he was hoping she would live with them, like she hadn't lived with them, and he hadn't known her for a long time, and right away when she comes, she passed away. And I remember thinking like, yeah, Allah, like just show them the way, because this is obviously like this happens. I've had a Liberian friend that would tell me the same thing. Like, some of her family members are Muslim, some are not. And it's all because of the missionary work and how some people will like the family is Muslim, the children go to school, they adopt a different faith. And you're like, how is this possible? But Qadar Allah, it happens, and it may the time of death be a reminder, So anyhow, I went on a big tangent, but I hope, where was I at before that? So we talked about, okay, so the soul is, when we bury the person, when we take them to the graveyard, the Prophet ﷺ taught us that as what we're supposed to do is once we put the person in the grave, or from the time the janazah is happening, they can hear everything, but we cannot hear it. So we're gentle with washing the body. We're gentle with that person's body. We don't expose it. The person who is washing it is not supposed to speak about it or describe that body to anybody. It's like an amana. It's like a major sin if that person is, I don't want to say it's a major sin, but it's like a sin if that person exposes the person or talks about their body. It's like a serious amana. You don't say anything about it. And you, once it's washed and it's ready, you let family members come and, give their salam. What I have seen is that when you're done washing with the body and you wrap it, you can leave the face out so that the family can come say their greetings. And this is a time where they can hear you. So you say the best things. You say things that will benefit them in their grave. The Prophet ﷺ said, ask Allah to keep them steadfast, because what will come after is very shaky. Like they're meeting with the two angels, and we will talk about that. They're meeting with the two angels, the Munkar and Nakir, that will question them, that will scare them, that will intimidate them. And what they need at that moment is somebody to remind them of their strengths, right? And to ask Allah to forgive them. When you pray on them, same thing. And I also have a slide about how to pray the prayer of the janazah prayer and the details of that. When the Prophet ﷺ also taught us that when we go to the graveyard and we bury our dead, that we stand there. And there's a hadith that says we stand there as long as it takes to slaughter a camel and distribute its meat. Right? How long is that? Allah Ta'ala A'lam. How long does it take to slaughter a camel and distribute the meat between the people? Allah Ta'ala A'lam. But basically, that time he is estimating, he's basically giving us like an estimate of, is the amount of time we should remain at the grave site and continue to ask Allah to forgive this person. Is it mandatory? No. Most people don't stay that long, but what I have seen is that family members do tend to stay around, and just, it's a very emotional time, here is your loved one that is under the ground, and you could touch them and hold them the couple of days before that, and then all of a sudden there's just sand that you're staring at. So realizing that itself is something that takes a toll on people's hearts, and they just stand there and gain strength from just remembering them. I remember one of the most emotional things I've ever seen during a burial, and I was helping with washing the body of my husband's stepmom, so the mother of his other siblings, half siblings. She was an amazing woman, rahimahullah. She passed away 2 or 3 years ago as well. When her body was prepared and everything was ready, her daughter-in-law, she used to live with her, she used to take care of her, she came in a little bit later than she wanted to, but she came in, and she came at the time where you're supposed to perfume the body. And she brought her mother-in-law's most precious perfumes, and she said to her, these are the perfumes you used to love putting on before you slept. So she put it on her. This is the same lady I told you guys, her niece did not want her like, when you're washing the body, you're doing ghusl. And when you're doing ghusl for her, you're, like when you do this to the ankles, not to the ankles, when you do this to the toes, that's what she was making sure, like, oh, can you make sure that you do this for her? So everybody around her was like so loving and doing things for her that it made me feel like this woman is being prepared in the best way possible to go meet her Rabb. She's being beautified. She's being washed, like, to be completely clean by people that love her so much. She's being perfumed. And it's like perfumed, not just like, when on your wedding night, you buy the best perfume and you put on the best makeup and the best dress. It felt like this is the way she was being prepared for her death, for meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then my sister-in-law, she brought her kids, and she brought the two oldest ones. And I think at the time they were at a stage where they could understand death. The Prophet ﷺ, when he says go and visit the graves, he says because it reminds you of dying. And so some of the scholars, when people ask, like, is it okay to take the young children? Some of the scholars talk about it could bring, like, trauma, like emotional trauma for children if they don't understand the concept of death. Like, so someone sheikh was saying, they don't even understand the concept of life. How do you teach them about dying? But if they are old enough to understand, then this is a reminder for them as well. So she took them and she said to them, this is your ayayo, your grandmother. Tell her, how are you going to live the rest of your life with the Quran she has taught you, with the deen she has emphasized, with the, like, she was a very patriotic woman, with the Somali nimo, or like the Somali values that she had left you with, so it was so emotional. Like, she's done, she's dying, she's died, she's going to meet with Allah. Say your salams, say your greetings to her. And I felt like that was an important closure for children at that age. Like, it was an important closure for children who had been so attached to their grandmother. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on her and reward my sister-in-law for what she did, because it truly, truly, like, showed how much we respect the families that the dead person had left behind. There are people that, make it difficult for the family members to, when in the time of, like, burial, they make it difficult for the family members to come and give their greetings, And I remember Zakia, if you guys know her from the community, she's very forgiving. She's like, let them, like, people want to grieve, they do it the way that is best for them. It's not a time of educating. When we start to educate people at this place, it's not the time for it. The reason why I say that, another story of, like, a burial that never leaves my mind. This happened in Columbus. It was all over the news. There was, like, fighting happening at the masjid at the time of the burial. When this Muslim man died, the imam of the masjid came up on the stage and he said, this man was known to live a very un-Islamic life. This man was known to have changed his name, that he might not even have been a Muslim, right? There's no certainty. He might not have been a Muslim, that he was openly, like, committing haram, so we will not pray on him. Now, from a fiqhi perspective, yes, there is some evidence that the scholars don't pray janazah on a person who was openly a sinner, right? However, the family members can, or somebody who isn't at the level of who isn't, like, the major scholars shouldn't, but maybe somebody else can, somebody else can lead the prayer. But the way it happened, the way he said it at the masjid, without, like, consulting with the family, without letting the family know ahead of time, and people, like, he did it at a time where everybody was just like, we're just standing in lines and we're waiting for the janazah to start. What happened immediately after is that you saw the woman storming into the men's side and fighting with the imam and fighting with the people, and even though another imam came up and he said, I'm going to do the janazah, the janazah was prayed in a way where it was just not settled. It was just like there was a lot of chaos. There were people screaming. There were people fighting. There were people at the outside, like when we left, when it's like a time where this person is going to meet with Allah, and the Prophet ﷺ is telling us, you know what they need the most is a reminder, is like that you make dua for them so that Allah make it easy for them to go meet with the angels. What was happening was fighting. What was happening was chaos. And all I could think of is how much we lacked knowledge about what happens in this stage, and how, like, obviously, like the community wasn't ready for such a shock, you know, for such, the people there were not ready for these opinions at this time. This is not the time to educate people. It's a time like you hold a class later, you invite the family, you go to their house, you talk to them. Allah Ta'ala, you know, the way that you could do it. But it just created chaos. And people were standing outside and saying, they're only saying this because he's from this tribe and he's from that tribe. And you're like, it has nothing to do with tribalism. It has nothing to do with, you know, like the imam liking him or knowing him or not liking him. It is fiqh, and it's just the way it was done. It was so chaotic, you know. And then I was thinking, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala facilitates what's best for a person at the time of their death. You know how, like, there's that saying where when a person dies, and if there's more than 40 people that come and pray at their janazah, it's a sign that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepted them, you know, or that they are amongst the believers. So how do you do that? Like, you can't make sure that all these people come to your janazah, but what you do is you do good deeds and you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for husnul khatimah, and then Allah takes care of these things for you, you know. And it's not like it's just a sign. It's not even that important. So I wished people were prepared for that at that moment. Another thing is that when a person is taken to the grave, they're put in their grave. The Prophet ﷺ tells us to stay around. I think I mentioned all that. The next thing that happens, what is happening to the person inside the grave? The Prophet ﷺ tells us that as soon as we leave, and with the last footsteps that the person is hearing, that's when they're cut off from this dunya. Like, that's when khalas, like, they're in state of barzakh, and they can no longer hear anything from the dunya anymore. There's maybe some exceptions if you're making dua for them, if you visit their grave, that some scholars say they might hear, some say no, they do not hear. But anyways, the goal, like the point is, when they're put in the grave, the angels come. Munkar and Nakir. The Prophet ﷺ says those two angels, Allah created them to look intimidating. They look, the description says, aswadani azraqan. They are blue-black. What does that mean? Allah Ta'ala a'lam. And they're very intimidating. They do this to the believer and the non-believer. And this is, actually before that, what happens, I forgot. Let me finish this and then I'll go back to what happens. Is that they ask, you know, 3 questions. Man rabbuk, man nabiyyuk, wa ma dinu allati, what religion did you live upon? And so who's your Rabb, who is your Prophet, and what is the religion that you lived like upon? And so the believer will say calmly, firmly, I believe in Allah, I believe in Muhammad, I believe in Islam, and I lived my life like that. The hypocrite will say, I used to hear people say this, and I used to say it after them. And the kafir will say, ha la adri, I have no idea, I have no idea. And they will be like, that's then when the life of punishment versus the life of blessings will start for the person. What happens right before that is that the Prophet ﷺ says, when Sa'd ibn Mu'adh passed away, who was a great companion, so beloved to the Prophet ﷺ, he died, he was put in the grave, and the Prophet ﷺ said that the grave has this tightening. If anybody would have been saved from it, it would have been the servant of Allah. Meaning every single human being will experience that. And it's painful, or it's difficult. It's not an easy hugging of the grave. Everybody goes through it. It's kind of like the process of being born. Everybody has to go through it. It's painful. You know, it is what it is. It's part of life. It's not a punishment. It's just a process of life. And so that's one of the first things that will happen. And then the questioning, and then the punishment and the blessings will start. Now, if the person was a believer, the person was a believer, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will widen their grave for them, will open a window for them to look into their home in Jannah, and He will send them a companion that represents their amal, their good deeds, that looks good, that smells good, that will entertain them and stay with them and be their company until the day of judgment. Okay, and they will be put in a state of sleep where they can, when they see their home in Jannah, they will continue to say, Ya Allah, aqim as-sa'a, let the hour start, like out of how much they want to be there. Whereas, and then they will sleep, and that sleep will be like, when they wake up, it will feel like, oh, this was the best sleep that I had. Like it was a deep sleep that I slept. I felt so calm, so comfortable. And then the disbeliever, or the person who basically has, like some punishment in the grave, they could be a Muslim, but who is a sinner. What happens to this person is that they will get punished according to their sins, and I will share that hadith with you. But basically, they will be asked when they are not able to answer the questions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends an animal to them in the graveyard. Allah in their grave, Allah tightens their grave for them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will send them a companion that smells bad, that looks bad, that is not pleasing at all, that represents their amal, their deeds, and what they have lived upon. And they will see their place, a window that will open up where they will see their place in hellfire, and they will beg Allah to never start the day of judgment, that they would rather stay in that place and that punishment forever, so that they may not be put in that place of punishment. The Prophet ﷺ, can I come back to you guys and then start this hadith, maybe, because it's, I'll come back to you guys. Any thoughts, any questions you have? I need a drinking break. Alhamdulillah. Okay, go ahead and put your questions down if you have them, inshallah. All right. So there's this long hadith where the Prophet ﷺ tells us, like he goes to the companion, he tells us what happens in the grave, what are some of the punishments that people see in the grave. Last week, where we talked about one where the Prophet ﷺ, he said that these two people in their grave are being punished, and he mentioned one of them did not clean themselves properly after they urinate. So like, not maybe perhaps like, that's something that can easily be avoided, and the other person spreads rumors about people that are not true, like they are doing namima. They talk about others and they slander others, and it's not true, but they keep talking about it. So those two people, they'll be punished in their grave, even though they might have been Muslim, right? Or they probably are Muslim. The other one is this hadith that is long, where the Prophet ﷺ says that he would, let me see what. Ameen, Samar. Thank you, Habibti. Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Aisha. You think I'm glowing? I hope I keep it after I give birth. Jazakallah khair, Habibti. Okay. What was I going to say? Yeah. So in this hadith, the Prophet ﷺ, he said he would sit with the companions and he would say, "Did any of you have a dream? Like, share some of your dreams with me." And then one day he said to them, I had a dream and I'll tell you what happened. So in this dream, he was sleeping, 2 angels came to him and they took him. And you will find this, it's like a long hadith. I'm kind of going to say it fast, but you'll find it in this book that I have reference here for you. Basically, he goes, like, these angels come to him and they take him, 2 men come to him and they take him on a journey, and he doesn't know who they are. They take him on a journey. They bring him to a place where he sees somebody laying down, and then on their head, like this person is laying down on the ground, and at the top of their head, another person is standing. He has a huge rock, and he hits this person's head with it. Their head completely smashes, and the rock goes and falls, like, how you throw a rock or a ball, it goes away, right? So the person standing walks and gets the rock. By the time he comes back to stand on top of the person laying down, this person's head has been put back in order, okay? And so the Prophet ﷺ is shocked, and he's like, what is happening here? Like, this looks horrible. This looks horrific. And the 2 men say, keep going. They're 2 angels. They say, keep going. They keep going, and then they come to see a person who is also laying down, and the other person has a hand that looks like a hook made out of iron. He puts it in the mouth, and then he tears it all the way to the back. He puts it in their eye, and then tears it all the way to the back. Puts it in the other eye, in the nose, and this is like more horrifying. And the Prophet ﷺ says, what is going on to this person? By the time this person standing is done with the last part, like the mouth where they started, or when the mouth is put back together, he goes back and he does it again. And so this person is in constant state of their mouth and their face being torn out with a hook. And so the 2 people, they say, keep going, we will tell you later. They go and they come to a place where they see a man who's who's swimming in a pool of blood. And another one that is outside of this pool of the blood. Whenever this person swimming and trying to get out of the pool of blood, he takes a rock and he puts it in the mouth of the person who's trying to escape the pool of blood, and that person is not able to escape. So he goes back and he's swimming again in blood. He goes to another shore, he wants to come out, and then he puts the person outside. The person outside puts another rock in their mouth. So this keeps happening. The Prophet ﷺ asks, they don't give him an explanation. Then he goes and he sees a group of women and men that are in a, what do you call those, like, pot? One that has like a narrow neck. They're all naked, and there's fire underneath them, and they're trying to get out, but they're not able to get out. One of those like pots that have like a narrow mouth. Okay, and there's fire underneath. They're trying to get out, and they're not able to get out. The Prophet ﷺ asks, they don't give explanation. They keep going. They see a very tall man who's very handsome, and very young children that are standing around him next to a tree. He asks, who are they? They don't say anything. So then eventually they answer these questions. They tell him that it was Jibreel and Mikael that were taking him on this journey. What the Prophet ﷺ, what was happening is that Allah was showing him the things that happen in the grave. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, the hadith where he says, if you saw what I saw, then you would laugh little and you would cry more. These are the types of things and punishments that the Prophet ﷺ was shown. The Jannah, he was shown it. So when he speaks about it, it was because he saw it, right? So they explain the first person, the one that rock was hitting him, they said is that a person who was given the knowledge of the Quran, and so he did not act upon it, and when it was time for salah, they neglected it and they did not pray, even though they had the knowledge of it. The second person is one that is the one that was basically getting a hook, is a person who created a lie, and that lie became big and it's now spreading. Like, they took part of lies being spread that having big impact in the world, but it was all a lie. It wasn't even true. It wasn't even true. The third person, or the one that was swimming in a pool of blood, these are the people that used to consume consume riba. They used to take riba from others. So just like they made it difficult for people to get out of the riba, Allah makes it difficult for them to get out of the riba as well. And then the fourth group, men and women being fire underneath them, these are the ones that used to commit zina. They used to, have like illicit, like haram sexual relationships outside of marriage. And then the last one is Ibrahim alayhi salam, the man standing with children around him. This is where children who died before the age of puberty go. Children that did not become non-Muslim yet, like children that are, I don't want to say they did not become non-Muslim yet. Basically, children of the believing men and women, children of non-Muslims who died before the age of puberty. They are all with Ibrahim alayhi salam. So this is what the Prophet ﷺ was being shown, the punishment of the grave, and he's telling us this hadith. What is the lesson? Be mindful of these acts that could earn us the punishment of the grave. Don't do these things. And I think I would highly recommend is that this book, just read it. A lot of the hadith, they are repeated, so you're going to skim through some of them because of they're giving you different narrations and things like that. But it's really, really interesting, and it shows us something that I honestly believe it's something we should dedicate time for every once in a while because of how important it reminds us. The life of the grave is called al-barzakh, and it's all these things that I've mentioned happening in the grave. The grave becomes wide. There's a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says that even the animals are not at the grave site, because the Prophet ﷺ basically in this hadith, he said, if you heard what happens in the grave, you would not be able to live. You would not be able to live a normal life. That's why Allah made it so that you cannot hear it, but the animals can hear it. And Sheikh Walid, I remember mentioning that if you go to the graveyard, there are no animals that live there. There are no birds, there's no dogs, there's no cats. Animals don't just roam around, even though it's like a big land that is open. Why? Because they can actually hear the punishment of the grave, right? Whereas human beings and jinn are the only ones that have not been given the ability to hear it. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us. How did the early predecessors and the righteous interact with death? Now, one story that I can never forget, it really taught me how should we look at death? I know we're all scared of death. Death is the scariest thing we would have to deal with, right? But we all have to deal with it. And Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, rahimahullah, who's a Saudi scholar who passed away in maybe late 2000, no, early 2000, 1999, around that time. He was hit with cancer. He came to America for treatment, and when they told him about chemotherapy, he decided he wasn't going to do it. But then he said a phrase that was so powerful. He said that a person lives their whole life doing good deeds, learning, teaching, seeking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and out of hope that they will meet with Allah meet with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the only thing that prevents us from meeting with this Rabb that we have lived our whole life worshipping and trying to please is death. So welcome to death that will basically bring me to the person that I love, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I remember thinking how can we live our lives like that? How can I live a life where really my ultimate vision, my goal is the day I die and I meet with Allah, that people might be crying and sad, and I might be scared, yes, but then I'm happy to be with Allah. I'm happy to go and present myself to Allah. I'm going to smile. I'm going to be proud, May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us and teach us what we need to live that type of a life. Another one is that the believers, how we interact with the angels and we see them. It was when Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who was one of the pious predecessors, who was the Khalifa, like we call him the fifth Khalifa Rashid after the four Khulafa, that were the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He wasn't a companion, but he was so great, he was so loved, right? He was he was the grandson of Umar ibn Khattab radiallahu anhu. And he was just a great person. So when he was dying, he had a very close relationship with his wife, Fatima. But then when the moment of death came, he asked everyone to leave his room, including his wife Fatima. And he was heard saying, welcome to these faces, the faces of that do not look like the humans or the jinn. And then he recited a verse in the Quran that, where is it? Surat Qasas? Let me tell you. تلك الدار الآخرة نجعلها للذين لا يبغون علوا في الأرض ولا فسادا والعاقبة للمتقين. Yep, it's in Surat. Well, I hope it is. Basically, this is. I don't know where it is, but basically, he said it's in Surah Al-Qasas, because Allah talks about Qarun, and then he mentions this. But anyways, he recited that ayah where basically he is saying that's the Darul Akhirah. This life that I'm going to is the Akhirah. It's like the ending. نَجْعَلُهَا لِلَّذِينَ لَا يَبْغُونَ عُلُوًّا فِي الْأَرْضِ. We made it for those who do not seek to be like they don't seek to be above everybody and in an unjust way. وَالْآخِرَةُ لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. And the ending is for those who have taqwa. So Umar ibn Abdul Aziz was a Khalifa. He was ruling the Muslim Ummah, but he was known to be a zahid, someone who ascetic, like he did not care for materialistic things. He did not care for power. He did not care for material. He even made his wife give up all of her gold and all of her wealth, and they lived a very easy, poor life when he was the leader and he had all the wealth in his disposal. He is one of those Khalifas that they say in his time there was nobody to take the zakat because everybody was well off, so he was that person, and this is how he was interacting with death when it came to him. There is what I have for us is like janaza prayer, and this, I'm hoping this will be our exercise for this week, the week after, the couple of weeks I come after, Allah Ta'ala A'lam. Going and attending a janazah is one of the greatest rewards that we will get. The Prophet ﷺ says to us in this hadith that whoever attends a funeral procession, like janazah, and offers the funeral prayer for it, will get a reward equal to 1 qirat. And then whoever follows it and goes to the burial site and helps with the burial, then they get a 2nd qirat. And then the companions, they asked, they said, what is qirat? And then he said, it's like a mountain of good deeds, a huge mountain of good deeds. We have different styles of different worship that works for people. And I remember about a year and a half ago, I made dua, and I was just like in a moment where I felt like I really wanted my husband and I to worship Allah together in a way that was good, that was pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but what I was thinking is like, I wish my husband would seek knowledge with me and go to classes with me and do all this stuff with me. But then, people are different. Like shortly after, my husband started to go to janazah prayers, and he loves to sleep. Like my husband loves to sleep, but he would wake up at 5 a.m. just so that he could get ready, go to work early, so that during the janazah time, he could take a long break from work and attend the janazah. And then I used to think he just prays the janazah and he leaves, but I found out, he told me like eventually that he actually goes to the burial site as well. And so I was just amazed. I'm just like, what is this that is making him want to go to janazahs all the time, And he said to me, like, it's a reminder for him. He's not a man who talks a lot, so he doesn't, like, I don't know what's really going on or why he does certain things, but then it's like, he said, it's just a reminder. And subhanAllah, like, whenever the reminder comes to him, like if it's a weekend, he will stop whatever he's doing and he will go. If it's work, he will adjust his schedule. Obviously you're not able to do that all the time, especially when you have like a 9-to-5 job, but he does his best to do it, so my question for us is like, when we talk about this, how can we try to do that as well in our schedules? How can we do it at least once a week, at least once a month, every other week, or like to make it something regular in our life that we go and pray? Usually if it's someone we know, or the community is like famous in the community, everybody will go, right? But how do we do it so that it's not about the person, it's about what is it that it's doing for us? It's about the reward, it's about the reminder of the akhirah that we're getting. There's many adab or etiquettes that we're supposed to follow. Some of them is that, when you're washing the body and you're preparing it for salah, this is something that we should learn as women as well, because women wash women. Yes, like her husband can wash her and things like that, but most of the time it's the woman that washed the woman. And a lot of times there's like few individuals in the community that are always called. And they're the ones that always go and do it. And it becomes like a burden on them, so nobody else is available. And this is done like for free. So they're volunteering their time. And it takes quite a bit of time. It takes quite a bit of time. Walk behind the funeral. The Prophet ﷺ told us like it's best to walk behind it, not in front of it. The other day when I was at the grave site, there were people that were already there, and I guess they had to be there because they couldn't pray the janazah because they had to prepare the grave site itself. But so that when the casket arrives, the grave is actually ready. So the Prophet ﷺ also says, when a janazah is coming by, you stand up. In this one hadith, the companion said to him, Ya Rasulullah, it's a Jewish janazah. So the Prophet ﷺ said, every dead person deserves that respect. So the Prophet ﷺ stood up to show respect. There are other narrations where the Prophet ﷺ did not stand up. So standing up is not a mandatory thing, but showing respect, being quiet, like stopping your car, showing respect to that, to this dead body that is passing by. It's a time of reminder and istighfar for the dead. So if you're at the gravesite, if you're at the janazah, if you're visiting the person, going to the azar, going to the Tafseer, we call it in Somali, like you're going to visit the family, make it about that. Because sometimes it turns into a party. It turns into a place where people come and they socialize and they're laughing. And, I remember at one janazah we were at, like somebody's house, this girl stormed in the room and she yelled at her sisters and she said, we're here because our father just died and you're sitting here talking and laughing and joking. Of course, these people are hurt and they're sad, but somehow I also see wisdom in the fact that people come and they try to keep you company because it kind of lessens the grieving side process, but then to also be mindful that it is still a time of reminder. It is a time of istighfar. It's a time to talk about the person who passed away and what were they known for, to remind others of that, who they were and what they did. Keeping our sight on the reward that we will get, and then the deeds that are actually benefit the dead person are like, so there are some things that are done that people do, like going to the grave and reciting Quran. There is no narration from the Prophet ﷺ that he did that. We're not actually allowed to pray the janazah at the gravesite. We're not allowed to read Quran at the gravesite. But what we do is we go and we make dua for the person. We ask Allah to forgive them. We ask Allah to keep them steadfast. We can pay sadaqah on their behalf, or we can pay sadaqah, or create a sadaqah jariyah, like build a well, give people water, build the masjid. Doing things like that will actually benefit, so that a dead person will actually see a mountain of good deeds, and Allah subhanahu, he will ask Allah, where did I get this from? And Allah will tell them who did it for them, who of their children did it for them, who of their loved ones that did it for them. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us to also give us tawfiq in doing that for our loved, for our whoever passed away of our family members. The dua that we say when we are in a state of janazah. So today, if you live in Minnesota, I know a lot of you guys are in Minnesota. Today, the janazah for Brother Hussein Khatib is at 4:30, like right after Asr, at Masjid al-Isra. And this is the dua we say. So you say Allahu Akbar, and then you read, you say Allahu Akbar, and then you say Allahumma, the order, Khaltoon, the order. Usually they remind you, right? But there's 3 takbirat or 4 takbirat. One of them you read Allahumma salli wa sallam ala nabiyyina, the tahiyyat, the tashahhud. I think you do that at the end. No, okay, so Allahu Akbar, and you don't bend, you don't do ruku', you don't do sujood, because the janazah is right in front of you. You know, it's right in front of the imam. It's like laying down there. If it's a man, he stands in the middle. If it's a woman, he stands at the head. So and everybody is like behind it. So there's no ruku', there's no sujood, because we're doing this for this individual. You say Allahu Akbar, you read Surat al-Fatiha, the Imam will say Allahu Akbar, you read tashahhud, like tahiyyatu lillah wa salawatu wa tayyibat, or Allahumma salli ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. You do salawat upon the Prophet, and then you say Allahu Akbar, and then you make dua for the person. And this is usually the longest period. So they give you time. You can. This is one hadith that is mentioned in Muslim. There is many other hadith and du'as that are mentioned that you could say. If you don't have this memorized, you can just pray from your heart and make dua for this individual. I remember when one sheikh was mentioning how a man came to a grave, not a grave, janazah, and he didn't know the person, and he didn't know the dua to say. So he said, Ya Allah, if this man who's dead today, like if he was my guest, I would have honored him. So Ya Allah, like when he comes to you, honor him in the best way possible. And so that dead man came to somebody in their dream, and he said to them, Allah has honored me and taken care of me because of the dua of a strange man that came to my funeral. So there's another thing that in Ihya Ulumuddin's book, like Imam al-Ghazali and Ibn al-Qayyim, they have chapters where they write about where dead people come in the dreams to people who are living, and they tell them what is happening. And Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, I don't have any citation for it, but for something I've heard is that people when people come to you in the dream who have passed away, it's usually true. It's like a true dream. Wallahu ta'ala alam, I should look it up. I just remember hearing it in a lecture. So they write about a lot of these stories and what people have experienced with their loved ones who had passed away and what they said to them in their dream. Okay, so this is the slide where I have like asking us to prioritize, make the time, find your local janazah announcement, plan to attend it, and make it a regular part of your worship, and then reflect on what the last time you had done this, or a time that you will do it in the future. If it was someone you know, if it was someone you love, like your family member, someone you cared about, like what was happening for you? What lessons were you walking away from? And how has that impacted you, like in the long term, There's a blog article that I wrote because when I first moved here to Minnesota, I think this is when like people I know started to die. Like when I lived in Ohio, somehow like it was just like janazas that I used to attend. I think part of growth or part of growing up and becoming old. My friend had a status like when you're getting old when, and I think I should say when you start to know people who are dying. Astaghfirullah. But anyways, my husband's nephew passed away. He was, he had cancer. His mother-in-law passed away. She was an amazing person, rahimahullah. And then my husband's his nephew who passed away, the mom had a baby after that, and he died, and that baby died, and so there was that janazah. Then my uncle came to visit from Kenya, and then all of a sudden, boom, he passed away. And these were people I knew, these were people I was interacting with. So their death was just so much more felt for me, and all I could think of, it really became overwhelming. And I remember I wrote this blog just to reflect on what is it that was becoming apparent to me. What is and it taught me the purpose of our living. the way people, what they say to you, what those dead people, dying people are saying to you, and the way, what they want from you at that point, you regret it when they die. So if you didn't spend enough time with them, you will regret it when they die. When, who they were to you and what gifts they have given you, you will remember and be conscious of it when they pass away. So how can we live our life in a way where we are doing that? And then sometimes like somebody will die and you will see all these people coming and talking about them and what they did for them, and then you realize this is what they were known the best for. So when my uncle passed away, he was, may Allah have mercy on him, he was like a wealthy man. And I always knew that. Like my mom always said, like he really helped her, took care of her, and he has done that for his family. But then what happened is that when we were at the hospital, and at the janazah, people were coming and they were just openly sharing stories about he didn't know them, but he heard about their difficulties and he would pay to release it. And that's the way he helped, like pay for it, pay for this, pay for that. And it was like, subhanAllah, may Allah make that a way or a reason for him to forgive you and accept you when you get to him, because you took care of others, you showed that generosity to others. May Allah show you that generosity as well when you meet with him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now in the next, this is all like Al-Hakum At-Takathur hatta zurtum al-maqabir, right? And then the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَلَّا سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ ثُمَّ كَلَّا سَوْفَ تَعْلَمُونَ. Why is there a repetition? Why is Allah repeating himself? Now, Allah does this a lot in the Quran. This was the culture of the Arabs. Like this is something they were known. Even the Prophet ﷺ, when he speaks, he repeats things 3 times. This kind of like, it's a way of eloquence that the Arabs were used to. Al-Hasan al-Basri says that it is a threat after a threat. You will know once, you will know again. Like Allah is threatening you 2 times. And then Al-Dhahak, another scholar, says that the first one is for the believers, the second one is for the disbelievers. And then Ali radiallahu anhu, he said, Allah is speaking about the punishment of the grave. Uthman ibn Affan radiallahu anhu, whenever the grave was mentioned, he used to cry. And somebody said to him, when the verses of Jannah and Hellfire are mentioned, you don't cry. How come you cry when the grave is mentioned? And he said that the grave is the first home we will be in after we die. And if that is good, everything else will be good. And if that's trouble, then we will be doomed. And so that used to terrify him the most. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the punishment of the grave. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us to seek protection from the punishment of the grave. And there was a hadith where the Prophet sallallahu like he would teach them the dua to say when it comes to, like, when you were doing our tahiyyat, before we say assalamu alaikum. Okay, sorry. I'm going to just move if that's okay. When we are, sorry ladies, I sat too long. I needed to get up. When we are doing our tahiyyat, we say, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min adhab al-qabr, wa a'udhu bika min adhab al-nar, wa a'udhu bika min fitnat al-masih al-dajjal, wa a'udhu bika min fitnat al-mahya wal-mamat. We ask Allah to protect us from the punishment of the hellfire, the punishment of the grave, the punishment of, we ask Allah to protect us from the fitna of Dajjal that will come, and we ask Allah to protect us from like all the tests and the trials that come in the dunya and when we are dying. So why do we do this? Because it is that serious. And some scholars, like especially in the Hanafi fiqh, they believe that your salah is actually like, it's one of the wajibat. It's one of the things that you have to do in your salah. Like it's a must, for you to say that dua before you say assalamu alaikum. But it's a dua that the Prophet ﷺ emphasized, and the Sahaba, they say that he used to teach them that dua like he would teach them verses from the Quran. That's how important it was. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, if only كلا سوف تعلمون ثم كلا سوف تعلمون كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين. Like, no, if you only knew, if you had certain knowledge, كلا لو تعلمون علم اليقين لترون الجحيم, you will definitely be shown the hellfire. ثم لترونها عين اليقين. Then you will see it like with the eyes of certainty. So if you had so when we have knowledge, we all have like a certain level of knowledge, right? But sometimes we act in ways that are not aligned with the knowledge Allah has given us. Why is that? Because Allah created us as human beings. We forget, we are weak. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when Adam alayhi salam ate from the tree that Allah told him not to eat from, Allah says, فَنَسِيَ فَلَمْ نَجِدْ لَهُ عَزْمًا. He forgot and then he lost his willpower. So when we forget, it's usually because we lose our willpower because we forgot what we had known, But then there's another level of knowledge. It's called ilm al-yaqeen, like you have seen it with your own eyes. What is the difference between the two? This one makes it more difficult for you to forget, okay? You have seen what will happen after this. So my son, he's just like, he's somebody who's usually very scared of things, We were in an elevator one day and he pressed the help button going up to my mom's apartment. And then the radio came on and they were like, who do you need help? What's going on? And that really freaked him out. Like he got so scared. So now when I try to say, I'm going to touch it, he will hold me. He will hold me both hands. No, don't do that. The police will come. Like he just freaks out because he had experienced it. Like he's like, I know I'm never going to try this. You're not going to try it. I'm not going to let you do it because I know what it is. If you're cooking and the oven burned you one day, you're going to be so much more careful in the future. So similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying that when you see it, you will have ilm al-yaqeen. Will that time then be too late for us? And then also the more knowledge we seek, the more yaqeen we will have, And the more we remind ourselves and put ourselves in a place of reminder, going to the masjid often, going to khutbahs often, going to circles of ilm, going to janazas, going to meet the sick people, all of these things remind us of this thing of death that we tend to forget about and tend to take for granted. This is why it's important to make it part of our regular worship. The prophets of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reason why they were so steadfast is Allah showed them ilm al-yaqeen. Allah showed them some things, So just like we were saying earlier, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he would go, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show him these dreams, showing him Jannah, showing him hellfire, showing him taking him to Al-Isra wal Mi'raj, doing all these things just so that he could strengthen him, so that he cannot be shaky in his message because he has seen the punishment. So when he is telling you to stay away from it, he's somebody who's so caring, who's so aware of what's happening. Same thing with Ibrahim alayhi salam. He asked Allah, show me how you bring life and death. And then Allah said to him, did you not believe? And he says, no, I believe. I just want my heart to feel settled. So Allah showed him, take this bird, cut it up, put it in different parts of the world, and Allah will put it back together. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows his prophets yaqeen. How does Allah show us yaqeen? What gives us certainty? And just because we're not prophets, but Allah also shows the believers certain things and he gives them an insight that protects them. What is it for you and I? Think about it. I think I could think of specific moments where I felt like, what, Allah was teaching me this lesson. And because of the way I felt, because of the way I connected to it, because of what it did, I could never go back and maybe do that thing, or maybe not take something for granted because of that pain. Okay? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you will be asked about the blessings. You will definitely be asked about the blessings. Are you counting them? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam was one day walking, and he saw Abu Bakr and Umar radiallahu anhu, and he said to them, where are you going in this middle of the day, in the middle of the heat? They said, we are so hungry, I guess there was not enough food. They were very hungry. They tied rocks to their bellies. And the Prophet ﷺ said, like, I have 2 rocks on my belly because of that's how hungry I am. So they kept on going, and then they came to somebody that invited them to eat, and they were very happy about it. They go in, the Prophet, they eat this food, and then the Prophet, as soon as they were done, the Prophet ﷺ, he says, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ يَوْمَئِذٍ عَنِ النَّعِيمِ, like, you will be asked about this blessing on one day. And then the companions, they said, Ya Rasulullah, like, we're still poor, like, how are we going to be asked about this? Let me just make sure I look at the hadith, because so the Prophet ﷺ, he said to them, ثُمَّ لَتُسْأَلُنَّ عَنْ هَذَا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ, like, you will be asked about this on the day of judgment. You left your home hungry, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not let you go back until you got what you wanted. And then what is it? وَإِنَّمَا هُوَ الْأَسْوَدَانِ. So basically the companions, when he said to them, like, he recited Surat At-Takathur, they said, Ya Rasulullah, we only have the 2 blacks, meaning water and dates. Like, we don't have more than that. Like, it's not like we are blessed. Like, you go to your fridge and you have bell peppers, and you have oranges and apples and grapes, and you have, bread, and you have different types of bread and different types of meats and chicken and beef and fish, and like, we're so blessed, right? They're saying we only have water and dates, and we're hungry, like, we're basically our swords are on our necks. So basically we're not in a state of peace, we are in a state of war. We're scared that we're going to be attacked. وَالْعَدُوُّ حَاضِرٌ, and the enemy is like right here, it could come to us at any time. So what is this blessing that we will be asked about? And then the Prophet ﷺ said, you will definitely be asked, like, أَمَّا هَذَا فَسَيَكُونَ, this is definitely going to happen. So what is it that we are not aware of, that we're not being thankful for? We're taking it for granted. We think we're entitled. You know what I mean? Like, we worry about sometimes. We look at people and hear them complain, and you're like, oh my God, but you have this and you have this. How do we do that for our own selves? And this is something that this Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet is teaching us in this part of the ayah. How will you respond? How will you have shown gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the things that He has blessed us with? Yeah. SubhanAllah. If we were to be fully grateful for things, we would give them their haqq. If we're grateful for our children, we would give them their haqq. If we're grateful for our spouses, we would give them the best way of interaction. We would, if we're grateful for our health and our bodies, we will take care of it the best way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us to take care of it. If we're grateful for the money Allah gave us, we will do with it what is best. So thinking of, are you grateful? Ask yourself, how am I interacting with all the things Allah has blessed me with? The water, the food, the air, the house, the peace, the skills, the knowledge, the family, the people, the opportunities, everything. How are you using it? And if you're not utilizing it in that way, then what can you do to be more grateful? And using that to reflect on how, if death were to come to you abruptly, suddenly, what would you really wish you would have done? If death was to come to you suddenly, abruptly, what would you wish you would have done? And these are your reflections. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to do what is best with this surah and the knowledge in it. You see why I said, like, Surat Al-Asr would not have fit? I always have so much more than I think I do. Alhamdulillah, I love this surah, and I hope that I was able to emphasize the things Allah wanted us to know from it. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. Do share with me your questions, your lessons, Anything that is resonating with you? I would love to hear them. So today I'm done. I can't breathe no more. I can't feel my throat. It hurts. Perfect timing. Alhamdulillah. I'm wondering if I should stop the recording. I'll let it go because sometimes you guys ask some good questions and good thoughts. No questions. Okay, alhamdulillah. Palestine, what's connecting with you with this in this surah? Yes, it had to be you. It had to be you. Yeah, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where is it? He was out in the middle of the day. He saw Abu Bakr and Umar. They're sitting somewhere. The Prophet ﷺ came to them and he said, like, why are you guys sitting here? And they said, Wallahi, by the one who had, sent you, the only thing that took us out of our homes is that we were very hungry. And then the Prophet ﷺ said, Wallahi, nothing took me out of my house except that I was also hungry. So there's other narrations that mention the rock, like he has two rocks, or maybe that's a different place. So then they continued until they came to the house of one of the Ansar. His wife opened the door. So the Prophet ﷺ asked for her husband. She said he went to bring us water. So he came carrying basically like water with him. And then he said, welcome to my visitors. Like no one had ever visited anybody better than like a prophet visiting me today. So he put up his water thing on the palm tree. So he went and he brought them adaq. What was it? Adaq is like basically like something like this thing that you bring, like dates. And then he said, why didn't you, like he brought a big one. So he said, why didn't you just like take it out? He said, I wanted you guys to do that for yourselves. And then he basically found إياك والحلوب ثم أخذ الشفرة. He wanted to go and slaughter, and then the Prophet ﷺ said to him, do not slaughter one that is like milky, or I guess that produces a lot of milk. So he slaughtered for them. He cooked it, fed them, and then this is when the Prophet ﷺ said, you will be asked about this on the day of judgment. You left your homes hungry, you went back to it like full. This is the blessing. Okay, so this hadith is in Rawahu Muslim. Basically that's the part that I mentioned. Is that the one that you wanted? Yes, good. Alhamdulillah. So it's like different narrations. It's the same hadith but different narrations. There's another one where he read Surat At-Takathur until when he said, you will be asked about the blessings. And that's when they said, Ya Rasulullah, what blessings will be asked about? We only eat the two blacks, water and dates, and our swords are on our neck, meaning like we're ready to go in a battle. And the enemy is right here. We're not in a state of peace. So what will be asked about? And so the Prophet ﷺ said, you will definitely be asked. So if they will be asked with that life that we definitely don't live, then Allah make it easy for us. Allah make it easy for us. This surah never fails to amaze me. What really got me was the end when you mentioned if we could truly be grateful for our blessings, we would give them its haqq. I never thought of it that way. But we are always quick to say we are grateful. Yes, yes, yes. I have been, You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Dawood alayhi salam and Sulaiman alayhi salam, when they are grateful because of how Allah blessed them, Allah tells them, "I'malu ala Dawood shukra," act in gratitude. So how do you act in gratitude? That's the question. Because we talk about gratitude as a feeling, but gratitude is actually an action in Islam. What would it look like? You know? It's actually in Islam and also in science. They like modern science and psychology tells you that too. But in our deen, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran, He says, act in gratitude. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.